Y'all, this tea is piping hot. This tea is piping hot. Y'all need to get over in here. Yvette Carnell and her stooges have been exposed. Her HQ stooges have turned on her. They hijacked the assembly. They hijacked the assembly, y'all. Come on in. I'm going to let a few more y'all pop in here. This has been leaked by the HQ stooges. They hijacked the assembly and have leaked this exclusive video showing that Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore are flat out liars. Their own HQ stooges have leaked this video to prove that the lies Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore are spewing about not knowing who the assembly is, about not knowing who the nucleus of this movement is. Now, I'm in my pajamas, y'all. I'm working from home. I'm going to let this play and make some comments, but y'all won't be able to see me because I didn't get glamorous. These HQ stooges, the Princess Sixes, the Zarina Harrises, the Trishas of ADOS Atlanta, managed in hijacking the assembly to expose their leaderless leaders, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. I'm going to let a few more of you get in the box before I play this. The HQ stooges have told it all in this leak about their leaderless leaders, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, who now stood up here and dragged
I would like to bring like a link to that, like to the work that you all do, and like highlight that work and bring attention.
People saying, "Well, Yvette, we heard that you was instructing them and you was telling them what to do." I told no one what to do. This is a shadow org that won't even tell me today who is in there. I don't even know who's in this assembly. It's like the mob. Who in there?
If you want to call it an overview of what the assembly is and does, I'll stop here, pause here. Any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback from either you, Tone, or Yvette with respect to what you've heard so far?
No, I see you all do a lot of great work. My only concern would be that is so concentrated, because what I see in this group is a lot of skill and a lot of work, right? Even when you talk about the Black Civics podcast and we talk about ADOS HQ, like I would like to bring like a link to that, like to the work that you all do, and like highlight that work and bring attention to that work, because part of and part of what happens is if there's not if there's not a structure for too long, what happens is you have a concentrated group of talent, right? And so like if people want to start chapters and stuff, they know, like you said, Chris, come and we have a conversation or whatever, and if they want to start this. But there's a whole lot of people, especially people who are kind of, they don't even have a chapter, right? So like that's kind of what HQ does. So it allows everybody under one hub and to kind of put what you all have done as well, and like okay, well maybe this is a structure we can use, because we're talking about, we need resources. We need like a hub for not only resources, but we need a hub for like the teams that we talk about. We talk about media teams, legislative teams, policy teams, for all the chapters, right? And then for all the work within those little groupings on ADOSQ, for allowing people within those chapters to kind of highlight what they do and how they've done it, so that we can have like, I know that you all get out, and I've heard about you all. I know you all. I know about everybody on here. I think Sean, I just one I didn't know well, but I think everybody else I either talked to or heard about, right? But stuff that gets to me doesn't necessarily get to everyone, right? In terms of like a concentration of talent. And I really kind of want to bring everybody online to highlight, like, okay, this is what you do. So you might be tutoring there, but you also tutoring on the ADOS HQ, right? Because it becomes like an online hub of people. And also if there's some stuff and people are disagreeing, I'm hoping that we can take some of that over there, right? So we can kind of hash that out there, because there's a lot, even in terms of like even in terms of media. So I don't want anybody to have to look around for Friday's show. I don't want anybody to have to really search around for the Black Civics podcast. I would like a link for that to be there, and you go there. So okay, this is what ADOS SoCal, this is what ADOS LA, this is what ADOS Boss, this is what ADOS DMV. So you can go in there and figure out who you need to talk to, who you need to deal with, especially if you're organizing around something. So let's say you're organizing around something that's happening in your area. You organizing, oh, I know so and so just dealt with this, right? So I want to talk to Reggie in Boston, because I know he formed a relationship with Ayanna Presley. I'm trying to do the same thing. So how did you do it? Did you do it in meetings? I think we need a place to kind of, because it's COVID too, and I hope, they say in 2021, but we have to have a place to kind of not only structurally organize outside, we have to have a place to kind of structurally like converge on a place. And what I see is like a bunch of people, a bunch of like talented people here, and I've seen it elsewhere as well. It's not just, but I want to bring that on board and kind of onboard people in such a way that like you're not just providing leadership here or with the people that you deal with, you're providing like that to a greater ADOS community online, because a lot of people don't even like the phone. I didn't even realize that. I realized a lot of stuff, but a lot of people love it being online. Some people hate it. Some people like, I don't even have a Twitter account. I didn't even know nobody was fighting. So I want to give everybody an avenue to be able to do that and be able to because I would like to have work groups for everything. Like, because we're going to have to get into the point at some point where we're talking about or working with who we hire to like write our own bills and stuff, right? So that has to be, we have to have that policy group. And I don't want to have 1,000 different things. If I can scale this thing and just have everybody working together, and we can have mods within that space too, to make sure that everybody stays on task. You know, it's much more difficult to have that kind of conversation on Twitter, because people who aren't even us can just throw an ADOS hashtag, and people, there's no kind of accountability, can't be kicked out. So, you know, I love everything that I have seen here. I just think I want to make sure that those talents are used also for the group, because I think there's a lot to learn from here. And I want to make sure, and I've heard other people do other stuff, and there's a lot to learn from here. And one hand don't know what the other hand is necessarily doing. So I would like to bring some of that in to what we're doing, and like provide you all with an opportunity. You've already proven yourselves in terms of what your leadership capacity does and what your work does with your timeline. And so there are a lot of people, because people are onboarding every day too. So I want them to kind of be able to see that and say, this is the path that was laid here, and here is how we can use what they've already did back in 2018 or 2019 to build from for our own little small chapter that we're doing. And I can call or whatever, but I can also just sometimes I might not need to necessarily. I can talk to Chris; he's available, but he also put a link to this in that part of the think tank. In that part of the group in HQ. He also did this. He also posted this. And when somebody asked about this 2 months ago, I remember he posted this. Let me go find it. So I just want that to be kind of a hub for it. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. I want that to be kind of a hub where you can do your thing. I can't hear you. I can't hear good. Maybe it's my.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't realize I was unmuted. You know, I really appreciate the presentation. Everything's not going to be resolved today. In terms of, it's good to get the layout of what you guys see internally. You know, as we're laying it out, we're setting up the C4 and the headquarters. The C4 will be out of Georgia. Once we have that established, I think we can start moving to input from different people. And of course, we would definitely take your input at the highest value in terms of how we should structure like chapters, because we need to be concerned with everything from an unauthorized message from ADOS to COVID concerns about how we even have meetups happening. I don't think we have that in place, that we want everything to be virtual. So there's, legal ramifications, but there's also structure. I think right now, what we would do is just take back the image of, your structure, and then kind of just digest that. As you know, you guys gave us a lot to chew on today. I think we're all moving to a productive space post Biden election, most likely. And hopefully when we get there, we can start leveraging everyone's skill sets to grow even further.
When I say Messiah leadership, I mean, like, I don't want to put something in place where, like, when MLK dies, everybody is over with. So, right, Antonio and I go and it's finished. I think we have to put a structure in place where people know that they slide into place. You're next, so you're next up. And what has to happen, and the reason, I also said we don't do Messiah leadership, but I also said we can't be Black Lives Matter. So the thing that has to happen in terms of Antonio and I as co-founders is you have to have accountability. So when something happens, especially when you're talking about when we're getting more media exposure, you have to, that responsibility has to fall somewhere too. So it's people love to do praise, but nobody wants to do the accountability part of it. It has to, that you can't do it without that. So I think, I understand, and I even understand what Black Lives Matter tried to do in terms of trying to have it all be horizontal. For me, I don't think it necessarily works. It works in some groups, but you have to have a specific kind of group to make it work, right? So it may work in a group where everybody is mature, like when you see the assembly, everybody's mature, they're willing to work together. It doesn't always work everywhere else. And I think, I tell people all the time, that's why the military has a structure. That's why you know exactly when it's time, when somebody says put down your arms, put them up, we understand exactly what's happening. But when I say Messiah, I don't want this, like when you think of the civil rights movement, and it's not even right, but you just think of King. You don't even think of Ella Baker. You don't even think of a lot of the other people who were there doing work. I think what we have to do, we have to also understand that, like, you're not the founder or co-founder, but like, listen, we have a person who is going to be able to do that. You know, you have to have somebody who is ready and willing to slip into all of these roles. You have to have people, and you have to allow a space to where you're not always the one talking on TV. Everybody knows who else can do this. Everybody knows who's good at speaking. Everybody knows who can slide. Everybody knows who is the next person up who's good at data. You have to have people who are ready at the drop of a hat to slide into all these roles, because if not, once you cut the head off, what happens is, it's just finished. It's just over. And we've seen that. Go ahead, Tefan.
Can I jump in here? It's weird because I don't think everybody knows why they like ADOS, and I think part of what they don't see is I think it's a very, very abstract mix. I might talk to Yvette, and then somebody like Serena. I mean, I might talk to Chris, and then somebody like Serena might talk to Yvette. Because I think what happens is, because Yvette, between Howard, sexuality, her skin tone, her parents' age, being in the Deep South, and then you got me. I'm UCLA attorney, West Coast, brown male, and I think we just cover a gambit of issues that bring about a whole conundrum for what leads to downfalls of, I guess you could say, Black political groups in this moment. So what do I mean? In this moment, gender is one of the main things that because it becomes an issue. Right after that is sexuality, homophobia, and things of the sort. Education is another one. I mean, so many of these groups aren't being led by educated people. Everyone can have their feeling how they feel about it. Another one is just not being quote unquote Black enough. One thing that you can't do is question me and Yvette's Blackness, and I'm talking about that in a more pure sense of, did you grow up around Black folk, or are you just pretending? And I think when you start combining it all, if we get like the ADOS movement is at a stage where it's just learning to walk. It's not necessarily an infant anymore, but it's just learning to walk. One of the things that will have to happen as a balancing act between what you guys have set forward and what we see is some kind of clarity about, are you guys talking about running while we're just talking about let's start walking, and how do we meld that together and move forward? I think that Yvette's line was about Messiah leadership, and I think that some people might have mistook that, Reggie, in the sense that it wasn't necessarily saying that this movement won't have leadership. And one thing I have truly respected, and I don't say this too often to you guys, or maybe not often enough, the ones that I deal with, is you guys, whether you know it or not, have consistently allowed myself and Yvette to lead without having to say so. When I went to the meeting with Karen Bass, I really respected that ADOS LA allowed me to make the presentation that's on the YouTube shows. Let's make it simple. The same thing goes when we did the hearing with AB 3121. Our mission now has to stay simple while being very complex in terms of I guess you could say undergirding. So what do I mean? Simple in the sense of we're trying to project the messages on these shows. Complex in the sense of you got to have a whole infrastructure so people don't try to undercut your message. We got all kind of people trying to come in and act like Johnny come latelys and act like they Chris on Friday or Princess and the thing is, this structure I think begins to allow us to say, you just got here, get your membership card first, get your laminate. Your laminate is still hot and you already saying what you gonna do. Let me jump in here and explain. And so first of all, the first thing, there's 14 people on this call. So I don't know everybody on this call. So I'm only gonna speak in so many terms. And that doesn't mean any disrespect to the 14 people, but I'm just gonna keep it quite simple. This project started with me and Yvette doing shows and people asking for solutions. I started using a bunch of economists. My first interview was with Thomas Shapiro, if you remember. And so I used a bunch of economists, and one of them was Darity. And the main thing that Darity kind of allowed for is us to anchor what we already wanted to do, which is, I don't know why no other Black professors have said ADOS exists.